All right, welcome to Photoshop. This is a quick tutorial for the assignment number one. You start with this bike image, the red bike from Amsterdam, and you need to turn it into black and white. So the assignment at the end of chapter 2, I believe, tells you to change, to add add an adjustment layer and then turn it into a black and white image, which is a non-destructive way of working in Photoshop. So I can just walk you through it very quickly, and then I will show you two other options as well in Photoshop that you can do basically the same result. Not quite, but basically the same result. So as you have, you have your layer right here, you have your background image right there. This is your bike TIFF, RGB. If you open your channels window right there, it shows that you have 3 channels, red, green, and blue. That's what RGB stands for. So you can turn them off, right? So here, every single channel shows you the amount of basically color in each channel, right? So if you switch to green, this is how much green there is, and then if you switch to that, how much blue there is. And then I'm using the shortcuts to show you all of them. So I just wanted to just bring that to your attention for now, because I'll bring it again later on. So the first step is you must have your layers panel open. It's all open, all visible from your Windows menu up here, and you have all of those panels right here, which are also called palettes as well. So your layers is right there, and then we have already adjustments right there. It's already open right there. So once you have your adjustment panel open, you have all those little icons, and as you scroll over, it says, like for example, brightness and contrast, hue, saturation, threshold, etc., etc. So you have all of those little adjustment layers that you can do to your image. And again, this is a non-destructive way of working. So in this particular assignment, we are going to switch it to black and white. So there's your black and white icon right here. If you click on that, it switches your image automatically to black and white, and it creates a new adjustment layer within your layers palette. And here you have 2 icons within that layer. You have your adjustment layer icon right here, and then you can see the properties of the adjustment layer, and then you have also a mask. By default, a mask appears. Mask is brought upon the lesson later on in the assignments, I believe 2 or 3. So I'm gonna maybe touch upon it very, very, very fast. But in here, if you select make sure that you have your adjustment layer selected, you can see the little frame around it. Here, what you can do is you have all those options right there. And because the bicycle was red, for example, here by changing, sliding those values of the red, you can turn your bike into white or solid black there, so it looks like an actual Dutch bicycle. You can change your yellow as well. That will change your background. I understand there was a lot of green as well in the background, so you can brighten things up to change the contrast a little bit, just for fun, right? So this is just for demonstration purposes. And as you can see, this is an adjustment layer. So if you click on the little eyeball icon right here, you can turn it off, on and off, right? So that your original image has not been touched. Basically, it's still there. It is what we call non-destructive. So you can turn it on and off. Second part of this assignment is to add a tint to your image. So as you can see up here in your properties, again in your black and white properties, you have that tiny little square right here that says tint. You select that, and it adds a tint to it. So it looks like an old photograph from the 1930s or whatever. And your tint color is that little color square right beside it. If you click on that, you can pick your color. By default, I think in the outline it tells you the actual RGB values. We're not gonna punch those code in just yet, but just by dragging this dot right there, your cursor anywhere, you can pick a different color. So you can make it really, really intense or really muted, tone on tone. And then sliding your hue right there, you can switch from a warm color to from a warm to a cool color, such as the blue right here. And you can also just click directly into your color right here. So make it pink or hot red or whatever, right? So it's really at this point add a little bit of your own creative touch to it, right? It's we're quite open for that. So let's keep it teal like this. It will be fun. So this is basically what the assignment is asking for. To touch upon quickly on the mask, what the mask is, it basically hides part of a layer and reveals the one that is behind. So in this case, this adjustment layer does not have any pixels to hide because it's an adjustment layer. But what you can do here is, just as a demonstration quickly, you can make sure that you select your mask right there and not your adjustment layer. And let's say with a brush tool right here, right? So hit the B on your keyboard that switches to the tool, right? You can see every tool will have a letter beside it. And just to mask some items, I'm just reducing my brush right here using my square brackets, right? Your right bracket increases the brush, the left bracket reduces it. And I have an opacity of 14, so I'm going to bump it to 100. I'm going to paint in the mask with solid black, 100% black. And I'm just going to do that very, very quickly right here, just as a demonstration. I just want to have just the right frame of the bike to reappear, right? So I'm just going to, brush that very quickly like this, follow the handlebar very poorly, very poorly right there. So now we have the red bicycle and the red seat appearing. And all I'm doing right here is I am, as you can see in my layer palette right here, in my little icon right here in my mask, is I'm adding some black to the mask, which reveals the original image underneath, right? So if I turn it on and off, that's what happens. It's not destructive. So basically, that's how a mask function. I wonder if you can do this panel option. I'm just going to increase that so we can see them a little better right there. There you go. We can see that better. And again, you can just fill it with, let's say, a brush. You can do a selection. Like using your marquee tool right there. You can do a selection, and you can go under Edit, Fill, and then you fill with either the foreground color, which is black. This is your foreground, and this is your background color. Or you can switch to black 100%, and then it fills it up, right? By default, any layer with any mask is linked. You see the little link icon in between, the little chain thing. And now what I can do is I can actually move the mask independently. So if I use my Move tool, I can move the mask around. And there's my mask moving around within my, my palette right here. And then it reveals part of the image in a completely different way. So I'm just going to move it right back in the spot. So this is a quick introduction to the mask. It's not necessarily at this point, but you can try to have some fun with it and explore a little bit with it. So this is basically assignment number 1. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just duplicate this layer. So you can right click on your layer right here and it says duplicate layer, or you can drag it into the little plus icon down here in the bottom corner right beside the little trash right here. And that duplicates your layer. Why I'm doing that is just, I'm just going to show you why. Because now we're getting into what's called destructive modifications, meaning you cannot come back and re-edit, your adjustment layer. For example, in this case, my adjustment layer is right here, and I can come back to my adjustment layer and then still change it, change the tint, for example, I can still have, the ability to edit my image. So in this case, now what we're going to do is we're going to use a filter called Camera Raw Filter. So you're going to filter in your menu up here. You go Camera Raw Filter up here. And Camera Raw is a format for SLR, big, nice big cameras. Usually you can have a setting on your camera you can save as a JPEG or a Camera Raw. And Camera Raw is for more of a professional level of saving files, and you have more editing options. So the filter, the Camera Raw filter, for example, opens up basically a file before you would open it up in Photoshop, and then you would have a bunch of settings as if you were in your camera. So you can change your exposure, you can change your contrast, you can change the whites and the blacks, etc. So you can really mess up with this image. You can change the temperature, make it warmer, make it cooler. You can change the tint, etc., etc. So if you have, for example, shoot, in an environment that uses fluorescent lights, everything is going to look blue or green, and you can change the tint and warm things up. So as I hover over the cancel button down here, I press and hold my Option key on the Mac, or Alt key, and that resets everything. So I'm just going to click on that just to reset things. But what I'm interested in, it's not the color version here, is the black and white. So I have the black and white button right up here, and it does pretty much the same thing as the adjustment layer as earlier. So I click on that. My image is now black and white, and now I can change my exposure gain, my contrast, my shadows, etc. So you have somewhat control of the levels of the image, but not individual colors that what we had earlier. I'm going to reset again. Another cool little presets is you have all those little icons at the top up here, right? So you have tone, curve, detail, etc. You have effects, calibration, and you have some presets up here. So you can click on presets, and look at that. Black and white is already open. If I go to color, for example, I can change all those presets, and they're already changing. You can see the values up here in this window. Things are, changing according to whatever presets are set up. Black and white, same thing. I can go black and white landscape, high contrast, punch, low contrast, etc., etc. And even at the bottom, there's a sepia tone and a split tone, right? So sepia tone, you can click on that, and then click OK. And there you've done basically what was asking of you in assignment 1. But it's destructive. There's no way for you to readjust this, change the contrast again, change the color, etc. It is permanent, right? So this is why we prefer to work in layers and in a non-destructive way, right? So again, so this is your original picture, and then this is the one I just modified. That is pretty much a permanent option. So another option, another way to do this thing, because there's always multiple ways. I'm going to delete those layers because I don't need them right now. And so another very, very destructive ways as well is to do things. Remember the channels I was showing you, the RGB. You are in a color mode. What you can do as well, you can go under image in your menu up here. You go under mode, and then you switch to grayscale. And now it's a pure black and white only image. And you can see in your channel right here, it only shows a gray right there, right? So there's no RGB, there's no CMYK. CMYK stands for cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. This is pure black and white only. I'll just keep that over. So at this point, you go, okay, well, now it's gray and it looks pretty dull. What can I do to actually improve this thing? Well, you can go again in your adjustment layers, right? And then you can see some of them are totally grayed out, such as, all the conversion to black and white, etc., because you are working in black only. So you can, again, start another adjustment layer, which defeats the purpose. Since you're working into a mode that is destructive, quote unquote destructive, you can, adjust your image. So you go under image right up here in your menu, you go to adjustments. And here you have a few little options that we can just go over quickly. For example, brightness and contrast. So you can do, you can change your brightness right here. You can change your contrast right here. Everything can be done, within, without, setting up an adjustment layer. But again, this is permanent, right? So you click OK, and that's it. It's permanent. I'm going to undo that quickly. And I'm going to show you another mode, another adjustment mode that you can try as well, which is really cool, is levels. Levels offers you another control of your image. It's all your dark part of your image and then the light part of your image right there. So with the output levels right here, the bottom sliders right there, if I change that, it'll change all my dark colors and make them lighter. In the opposite spectrum, of course, all the white becomes darker, right? So it really looks really at night, basically. But up here is you have a little bit more control where you can make the dark darker and the white wider, right? And you have the middle part where you can change the contrast a little bit. So again, my Option or Alt key, and then I hover over my cancel, becomes a reset. I'm just going to reset that. What I'm going to do, I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to find my white spot. So right now, my whites are not quite white. They're a little gray and a little dirty. So you can use the eyedropper right here within your levels palette right there. So you can find, and it shows you the tool tip. That would be great if it does. Yeah, there you go, sample an image to set the white spot, the white point. So the white point will be my type in that tattoo shop. So I just clicked on that. Ooh, let me zoom out, and then made a mess of it. So again, reset, find the white spot right here, and it just changes ever so slightly. And I'm going to find my dark point, my black point. And my black point, I want on my tire right here to be my black point. So I'm going to select that, or maybe that sign right here. I'm just going to click on that. And that turns that spot on my sign into solid black. Right? So it really pushes the contrast. As you can see, the image is now, quite pushed. And it's just, so instead of, randomly finding the right spot within your sliders, you can just use those things very, very quickly. Right, so before, after, hit the preview button to see that, and that's pretty much it. So this is kind of a quick way to turn an image into, again, pure black and white. So if you're working in the print mode that is you're only printing in black, you don't want to convert an RGB into a grayscale using an adjustment layer. You need to go into your image mode, your color mode, and switch it to a grayscale. That's pretty much it. But again, this is destructive, and this is only black, so there's no way to add a tint to it, right? Unless you have to turn it into a RGB color and switch into a color mode again, and then you can switch things around. So this is pretty much the assignment number 1 in a nutshell, and then 2 other ways to get to similar results, but not quite the same way. So I hope that helps.